Recently, I was featured on the low-quality sports show for a 1-minute take. My take was that Carson Wentz has a very strong chance to win MVP, and I strongly believe that to this day. You may be like, excuse me, sir? Wentz isn't even the best quarterback in his division, never mind an MVP candidate. But in reality, that's false. He's clearly better than Dak. He's like a top 5 quarterback talent. He just hasn't closed out a season due to his injuries. To me, he's like a mini Mahomes. He plays in a very similar way, just with less weapons and arm strength. Very accurate quarterback, as in his career he has a 63.8 completion percentage and a QBR of 92.7. Also, another thing is that on playerprofiler.com, he had an accuracy rating of 7.6, which was 5th best while only having a 1.56 yard receiver target separation, which was 23rd in the league. That means his receivers were only 1.56 yards open on their targets. For him to do what he has done, especially last season with minimal receiver help, is astonishing. Yes, he has 2 good tight ends and a good O-line, but no team really has succeeded without any good, or in the Eagles' case, healthy receivers. Last season they had Greg Ward, a former college quarterback, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who to this point seems like a second-round bust, play meaningful snaps for them down the stretch of the season, and they still managed to beat out the Cowboys for a playoff spot. Clearly, the Cowboys are a better team, but it really comes down to coaching for the two teams, which the Eagles had and still have the advantage. I also believe the Eagles would have beat the Seahawks had Clowney not have injured Wentz. Speaking of injuries, Wentz has had a lot. A torn ACL in his near MVP season, a back injury, a wrist injury, and a rib injury. Obviously this is bad news, but in reality he has not missed many games in his career, playing in 56 out of 64 possible games so far through his first 4 seasons. Although games played are not a good explanation to say someone is not injury prone, I'm just pointing it out, and I understand that he is injury prone. Wentz will enter next season with the best offense he has had in his career. Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, who's off the field issues I will not talk about, Jalen Reagor, who I will go talk about more in depth in a second, Marquise Goodwin, the potential of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Miles Sanders, and a good backup running back in Boston Scott, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and a great offensive line with a potential hole at left guard as Isaac Seumalo is starting, and maybe at left tackle with Andre Dillard starting, but I think he'll be good next season. So overall, that is a great offense, and Wentz will have no excuses next season. So if he's not at the very least great next year, it's official, Dak is better than Wentz. Saying that, I don't like Dak. I don't think he's as good as Cowboys fans and Dak himself think. That's a topic for another day though. Having that many weapons and not providing a top 5 caliber season will be upsetting for Wentz. However, he will. He has to. He's too talented to not put on a show next year. Wentz even gave NFL fans a show last year when he put up 4,000 yards with no wide receiver over 500 yards. That's just insane. I don't think that will ever be done again, or at least for a while, but probably never again. I see the Eagles going somewhere from 10-6 to 12-4 next year. As a whole, their team is great. Their defense did lose a very key piece in Malcolm Jenkins, who went to the Saints, but also acquired Darius Slay from the Lions via trade, signed Nickel Roby-Coleman, who is a very underrated corner and deserves respect at this point in his career. So Wentz will have the wins going for him in the MVP race, because that is really the most important thing. Best player on the best team more times than not will win the MVP in the NFL, which is kind of unfair because there are better players than the MVP. By that I mean the player who ends up winning it, but just because they got 1 to 3 less wins, that player does not get considered for MVP. Russell Wilson. That's besides the point. One thing that bothers me is Wentz haters. Although I'm not a Wentz fanboy, he does not deserve the hate he receives. He consistently plays well for the Eagles, no matter the situation. Like last season, when he had no one to throw to. And he also almost won MVP in 2017. He would have won MVP if he didn't tear his ACL against the Rams in Week 14 of his sophomore season. He would have been another case of the sophomore MVP, but before Lamar and Mahomes. Also, the fact that he was able to play at the same level, or a similar level to that season, after such a horrible injury is astonishing. Not a lot of people can get back to their former play after a bad injury, so seeing Wentz do it is just great to watch. I now would like to go on a little tangent about Jalen Reagor, and how his addition is very underrated. Jalen was selected in the first round by the Eagles as one of the top receivers in the draft, for a very good reason. He never had good stats as he only had one 1,000-yard season, so people may wonder why was he picked so high if he never had a good season. Well, blame his quarterbacks for that. Only 30.7% of his targets are accurate. That's like if I were throwing the football, except on the D3 level. Just imagine if he had an even average quarterback any of his 3 years. He would have been the top receiver in the draft potentially, or at least the second one taken. I think he will have the most productive rookie season of all wide receivers, because now at the NFL level, he has a top 8 quarterback in the league. And next year's MVP in Carson Wentz? Just kidding. Or am I? I kind of am. But also, not at the same time. I don't know, man. Wentz has a huge shot. Back to Reagor. Coming out of college, he was known as a speedster. Most people had him as the second fastest receiver in the draft, but he ran a 4.47 40-yard dash. Not the second fastest by any means. But the more important thing is that he has in-game speed, which is obviously superior to just a 40 time. Some players do not run the fastest in their underwear, but are very fast when it comes to putting the pads on. So we'll have to see how fast Reagor looks for the Eagles this season. Overall, I think the Reagor pick is great for Wentz and his chance to win MVP due to the immense talent he showed in college with the worst quarterbacks throwing to him. He still managed to try to be productive, and only 1/3 of his targets are accurate. I really don't think anyone could do better than what he did with that type of quarterback play. There have been many times where a quarterback was blessed with a great offense and did not win MVP, but I do not think that will happen to Wentz. This is basically the story of Drew Brees' career, who I think is kind of similar to Wentz, except for the fact that Carson is a lot more mobile than Brees. But besides that, they are very similar quarterbacks in their throwing style and accuracy. Matt Ryan, in a similar way, always had a good offense, but he came away with the MVP only one time as his team was never really successful except for that MVP year, where they blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. Thank you, Kyle Shanahan, for giving Brady another ring. Ben Roethlisberger also has never won an MVP. His whole career, he has had a great offense, but never came away with the trophy. But at least he has Super Bowl rings. I believe Wentz is more talented than Big Ben, obviously right now because Big Ben's 38, but I mean in their primes. Ben was not nearly as mobile and Carson is more accurate, but Ben has a stronger arm. So it really goes in either way. You can also make the case that injuries make Wentz worse than him in their prime, but I don't think that matters because I'm just basing it off talent, not injuries, not anything like that. Also, Ben only won in the playoffs when he had a great defense on the field. Not to say Wentz has won the playoffs, but that is due to injury, not his lack of being able to come through in the clutchest moments in a game. Now, this is not to say Big Ben is bad, he's a Hall of Famer, but I think Wentz has potential to be a lot better than him when it is all said and done. Sorry about that little rant, I just want to compare Carson to quarterbacks who have never won an MVP, or just not as many as they could have if they had performed better. In conclusion, Wentz is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league today, from his mobility in the pocket to his accuracy and precision, his play with minimal weapons due to injuries, and his leadership. All of these traits show that he's a top quarterback today. Due to the addition of multiple weapons, some coming back from injuries, a sophomore breakout running back candidate, and a great team all around that could win the NFC East, I think Carson Wentz, most likely than not, will walk away with the MVP award this upcoming season. Also, Juice WRLD's album was beautiful. Just putting that out there. With all that being said, that is it for me, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Fanatic Sports. Hope you all liked the video. If you did, please subscribe and hit the like button. It only takes 2 seconds. Also, follow me on Instagram @FanaticSports25 and on Twitter @FanaticSports. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful day.